What lessons can medicine learn by listening to those who live it every day? What happens when patients advocate not just for themselves, but for others like them? The stories that shape the future of healthcare are the stories we tell today. This is the Patient Perspectives Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Patient Perspectives Podcast. My name is Lauren Scholler, and I am thrilled to welcome Dan Drydock Shockley, a retired Navy veteran who served in Operation Desert Storm, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. Despite being asymptomatic and having no family history, Dan was diagnosed with attenuated familial adenomatous polyposis, or AFAP, at the age of 51. His diagnosis fueled his mission to educate medical students about hereditary cancer syndromes. Inspired by his collaboration with the late Dr. Henry T. Lynch, the founding father of hereditary cancer research, Dan continues to advocate for early detection and awareness. Putting a positive spin on a bleak diagnosis, his mantra, always forge ahead with a purpose, captures his resilience and dedication to making a difference. Thank you for being here, Dan.
Thank you, Lauren. It's it's an honor to be featured on your platform.
Absolutely. I am so excited about this conversation. To start, do you want to take a few minutes to share about yourself, anything related to your diagnosis, your experience as a patient or professionally that would be important for listeners to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you mentioned about my Navy career, during my career, I was stationed on 7 different ships, and 3 of those ships had been deployed to the Persian Gulf, dating back to the fall and winter of '92, spring of '93, the spring, summer of '95, and then the spring, summer of 2001. So in my last 2 years, we're on the ground in Bahrain, a little island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. So um, what my experiences equip me for life is to plan for the worst and hope for the best. The Marines have a mantra: adapt, improvise, and overcome. And when I became a civilian at 43 years old, I'd spent half of my life in the military at that time. And then fast forward to when I turned 51, had my colonoscopy, I was able to look back at all that experience of in the Middle East, and when that helped me out significantly. I mean, I've always had a positive attitude, but that put me over the top when I got the diagnosis. So I have to say that my military experience played a vital role once I got diagnosis, and how I'm going to take this diagnosis and better prepare myself, better educate myself. And then as I kept, I continue to research about this, and then I get so excited about it and so drawn to it. I've embraced this diagnosis from the onset. My mindset is I tend not to think about things I'm unable to control, such as medical conditions. What I can control is my positive attitude. And after 6 decades on God's green earth, my positive attitude has brought me this far. Why change now? So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's so true that in the midst of facing various medical diagnoses, that it can really change your perspective and your outlook on life. Certainly with my medical diagnoses and, what I've been through as a result of my condition, it makes me very grateful every day to have the opportunity to have the mobility that I have. And it really gives you a different perspective that it's hard to really appreciate those smaller things in life until you're faced with something that challenges it. So thanks for sharing all that. Really, really powerful outlook that you have, and it's really admirable too.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, you were diagnosed with AFAP at the age of 51 with no family history and being asymptomatic. What went through your mind when you received this diagnosis, and can you share what navigating treatment decisions looked like for, both patients and providers to understand that experience of receiving news like this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you see, when I uh, when I retired at 43, at that time I served 22 years on active duty. So in the military, especially in the Middle East, you're so busy, with your primary duties and your collateral duties. So, 16, 18-hour days are not uncommon. And on ships underway, same thing. So that being said, when I retired, I had a regular day job, full-time day job, and of course, I just had too much time on my hands. So I went and got a part-time job, which actually turned into be a full-time job at nights and weekends at a hardware store, which is a totally different, because my day job was a government contract with telecommunications, which was my skill set in the military, and I was able to move into a position on the civilian side, basically doing the same thing I was doing in the military, doing on the civilian side on a government contract. Then at nights, I was at the hardware store, so that was kind of like my playtime, driving a forklift, filling propane tanks, and just, you know. So in 2004, I started at the hardware store, and of course, I got diagnosed in 2012. So the reason I'm mentioning this is there was a couple, husband and wife. They were several years older than I am, and they would come in, and they knew that I was retired Navy. And anyway, so we started talking, and every time I'd see him, Ian was his name, and Ian would always come over to see me. He goes, "Where's Daniel? How's Daniel doing today?" Shake my hand, and so the reason this is important is because when I was 50, I was 1 month from turning 51. I'd scheduled the colonoscopy. And then, of course, through the physical, every year, we get the weight and everything. So when I scheduled the colonoscopy, we noticed that there was a 14-pound unexpected weight loss. Now, I had two full-time jobs basically, so I couldn't keep enough. The calories, I was burning calories. Just so my GI doctor said, well, I want to do an upper GI as well as a lower GI. I want to be able to rule out any underlying issues. And I said, let's do it. And, I was sedated. I woke up in the recovery room. My GI doctor standing next to my side, and he had photographs, which he shared with me. And I was a little bit groggy, just waking up from being sedated for an hour. He said, well, Daniel, I found 100 polyps embedded throughout your colon, rectum, and anus, and one of those polyps is causing an 80% blockage in your ascending colon. And I said, well, doc, how can this be? I'm asymptomatic. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. So you're going to have to, help me along the way here. And, I have two jobs, and I'm going about my life as if nothing happened. So, and he goes, well, this is the importance of getting a colonoscopy, because we can get in there and we can do biopsies and get the pathology reports, and then determine what the next course of action. And he says, well, right now you just woke up from your being sedated. So I want you to have a clear mind. I want you to come into my office. And this was Tuesday, May 8th of 2012. He says, I want you to come into my office on Friday. We're going to sit down. I'm going to talk to you about this, because I'm going to need you to go see a certified genetic counselor at Tripler Army Medical Center. So I said, well, okay, what's going on? And he goes, well, I think you have a hereditary colon cancer syndrome. However, we won't know until we have DNA test results to confirm our suspicion. So I went in Friday, and he says, your appointment is Tuesday at Tripler to see the certified genetic counselor. And Hawaii at the time, they only had 5 certified genetic counselors, and one of them was assigned to the Army hospital. And that Tripler Army Medical Center is the flagship hospital for the military in the entire Pacific theater. So I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, as soon as I get done talking to you, I'm going to go over to Tripler. I don't even know where her office is. And he says, well, it's in the general surgery clinic. So I went over there. I found it. It took a long time, because that's a big hospital, and I don't know my way around. So I go in, and as soon as I walk in, there's pictures on the wall, the entrance, and that's the military chain of command for that department. Well, the very first picture is the chief of surgery. And I saw his face. I saw the picture, and I said, I know that guy. And come to find out, it's my buddy Ian from the hardware store. He's the chief of surgery, and he's a colonel in the army. And
Wow.
so so it was Friday. I just did an about face because I said, "Oh, I'm good." So I left and I went, back to my daily activities. And then as I'm going into the store, the hardware store on Sunday morning, as I'm walking into the back to change into my uniform, Ian and his wife are in the store, and I walked by him and say, "Hey, Ian." And he shook my hand. I said, "Well, Ian, let me tell you, for all these years, you've been one of my loyal customers. Now let me introduce myself to you, what I am to you." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I told him, and he says, "Hold on a second." So his wife Judy was just an earshot away, and he goes, "Judy, come over here." So she came over, and I explained, we got 100 polyps embedded throughout my colorectal anus. I'm being referred to a genetic counselor for DNA testing. So he goes, "Okay, don't worry, you're in good hands." So I go in Tuesday morning, and my genetic counselor goes, "Daniel, Ian came up to me yesterday and said one of my buddies from the hardware store is coming in. Take care of him." I raised my hands. "I'm home." So we went into the exam room, and she is now. Um, we're going to do DNA tests. It's going to take 3 weeks to get the results back. The closest molecular oncology lab is in Pasadena, California. And in the meantime, I want to talk to you about this mutation we think you have, and then I'm going to bring in a colorectal surgeon to talk to you about this. And colorectal surgeon came in and he went through everything just to explain what he thinks will happen. However, until we had the DNA test results back, that's when we're going to make the decision of what to do. And he says, "Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you. If you have this mutation, your case is too complicated for me. I'm going to have to refer you to the chief colorectal surgeon here at Tripler." And I said, "Hey, Doc, I appreciate your honesty." And then I asked my genetic counselor for some credible resources I can read about this mutation. And I also wanted to read about the type of surgery, which was to remove the colon, rectum, and anus, and to be outfitted with a permanent ileostomy. And then I wanted to read about what it's like to have an ostomy. I don't know any of this. So I went into battle mode, okay, in a positive way. I had to break this down into 3 phases. So, my deployments to the Persian Gulf, we have extensive training months in advance to go there. And so I went into battle mode, and I was reading about the mutation they thought I had, the type of surgery that I would need, and then what it's like to have an ostomy, permanent ostomy. Now, theory is one thing, practical application is another. And I had to learn these medical terms. So what happened? The results came back. The gene mutation, it's in my 5th chromosome. The mutation itself is known as adenomatous polyposis coli, APC. Now, because I was 51, the window, if you're diagnosed with the APC mutation, the window for attenuated FAP is 50 to 55. I'm right there in that window. So now, little did I know, the AFAP, that mutation was, that diagnosis, that was discovered by the late Dr. Henry T. Lynch, the founding father of hereditary cancer research. He received a grant in 1984 from the American Cancer Society that 6 years later led to the discovery of AFAP being a subvariant of FAP. Now, the difference is FAP will impact those with the APC mutation from 50 years and younger. And the majority of the ones that I know that have FAP are symptomatic with family history. Now, I'm asymptomatic and no family history. So I had to wait. It took 6 weeks to get the results back, and I'm still reading. Till this day, I'm still reading about this because the mutation, Dr. Lynch, he estimates that less than 0.03% of the global population is diagnosed with it or have it. But we don't know. There's no statistics. Now, the results came back June 29th. It was 6 weeks later. And my colorectal surgeon, my genetic counselor had me in the exam room, and they said, Daniel, the results came back confirming you have the APC mutation, which means you have attenuated FAP. It's you don't have to have the surgery, but you need it. And it's in the best practice of medicine to have the total proctocolectomy with a permanent ileostomy, because any of those 100 polyps left unattended have a 100% chance of developing into colon cancer. And I said, Doc, I want the surgery. And so I had the surgery. I had 35 staples midline. And then where my anus used to be, I had 13 staples there. And I'm 6'1", and I'm in the bed at a 45-degree angle. My feet are hanging off the side. But, I was beat up. It took a lot, literally, it took a lot out of me. When I woke up in the recovery room, I knew where I was. It had been a 6-hour surgery. And I knew what I was there for. And the first thing I asked to whoever, the first couple nurses that were, by my side, was I asked, did Dr. Gagliano find everything he's looking for? And so they said, well, he'll be in a little bit. You just woke up, so just hold on, for a little bit, and then we're gonna get you up to the ward. And then they had all the charge nurses up there at one time. They had 7 of them all around me, just because I had a unique case up there. I mean, I was beat up, I was sore and weak, but I knew what was going on. And then my mind, was already going with, okay, what do I need to do now? So, but yeah, relying on going back to all that, the training, the experiences I had in the military, that was that helped me out immensely, and it just helped out with my positive attitude. Didn't between the two, the positive attitude and my experiences, I was able to just overcome that, being diagnosed. And then I had to learn about what it's like to have the mutation, because I go through routine endoscopic surveillance, and the mutation will and has impacted other organs. It's taken over my stomach. There's another part of the mutation that gets into your eyes, and that's known as CHRPE, CHRPE, and that's congenital hypertrophy retinal pigmentation of the epithelium. I have elliptical lesions in my eyes because of the mutation. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to, no pun intended, we have to take it, we just have to keep an eye on it. So I have 2 different ophthalmologists that I go see, or they see me every year. And then I have an optometrist that I have a visit annually with that. Now I have a GI. At the time I was residing, when I got diagnosed, in Hawaii, and I go through an EGD and a side view scope every year. And so 2012 was when I got diagnosed. 2013, I had an EGD and side view scope in Hawaii. And my GI doctor in Hawaii, the one that did my first colonoscopy, he did my my follow-up a year later. And then in 2014, he did EGD. And then he sent me to Palo Alto VA hospital to have the director of the GI clinic do what's called a single or a double point enteroscopy, depending on what he wanted to do. Now, the significance here is there's no GI clinic in Hawaii that can facilitate a single or double point enteroscopy when I was residing there. So I had to fly to San Jose, go to Palo Alto. So I had the procedure. They said, okay, come back. The director said, come back in 2 years. And so in 2016, I said, well, I'm just going to move to I'm going to move to Northern California to be closer to Palo Alto, because I know from the research I've done that the mutation it's going to get to the point where I'm going to have another surgery, and that's to hopefully prevent the mutation from reaching my pancreas. Now, I came back in 2016, and then every year ago. So in 2020, September 2020, we found there was a 3-centimeter adenoma found in my jejunum, the beginning of my small intestine. And the director of the GI clinic, he says, and I talked to him before the procedure, I talked to him afterwards, because we're on the same page. And he says, Daniel, I recommend you consider surgery. So this mutation, the adenoma, does not reach your pancreas. I said, well, what are we talking about? The Whipple procedure? He goes, well, there's a newer technology in the last 25 years. It's known as a pancreas sparing duodenectomy resection. I said, nah, I didn't know how to pronounce all this. I had to learn about that. So I said, well, what are my options to have this surgery? Because I want the surgery. I know in the communication I had with Dr. Lynch that the older I get, the mutation, we don't want it to impact the pancreas. So he said, well, MD Anderson in Houston, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and Stanford. And I said, well, Stanford, that's 2 miles up the road. I'll take the Stanford option. Would you happen to have a surgeon at Stanford that can do this surgery? He goes, yeah, there's a surgeon there that's done this for 2 of my patients and they're fine. I said, I want his name because I want to get referred to him. So I got referred. I went to Stanford the next month, and Dr. Brendan Visser, he's one of the nation's leading surgeons to do this particular procedure. And I'm in the exam room. He walks in. He goes, Daniel, I know you know a lot about your mutation. I'm just going to cut to the chase. This is where we're at. This is what you're here for. So if you want the surgery, I can do it. And I said, yeah, I want the surgery. So, and this was October, okay, of 2020. So, and I know you'll enjoy this because this is a baseball reference you haven't heard about from me. So I said, well, Doc, here's the thing. It's October 2020. We've already have enough excitement this year. Can I have this surgery in, let's say, March of 2021? And he goes, well, yeah, that's what, 6 months. Well, yeah, this isn't aggressive. So yeah, I think March would be fine. And I said, the reason why, Doc, I just have to let you know, I'm a big baseball fan, and spring training, if I'm going to be laid up for a couple months recovering from this surgery, I want to be able to watch baseball. So, and then I shared with him, what does life and baseball have in common? Neither have a time limit. When baseball goes into extra innings, I consider that free baseball. And since I consider my life to be in extra innings because I beat colon cancer, and so I'm enjoying free baseball, and he got a kick out of it. But anyway, so it all goes back to the attitude, of the individual. But it's also, they have a medical team that you can talk to, and shortly after my surgery, unbeknownst to me, Dr. Lynch, at the time he was 86 and a half years old, he being the founding father of hereditary cancer research, he was the director of preventative medicine at Creighton University, Omaha, Nebraska. And he ended up coming to Hawaii to perform some academic lectures. My genetic counselor let me know about 3 weeks prior to. She says, well, I'd like you to be in attendance at his lecture at the University of Hawaii Cancer Center. And I said, I'd be honored. So she personally introduced me to Dr. Lynch in private. We went in to the lecture, then we had lunch, and then we sat down for an hour and 50 minutes. And he personally, I had a binder with me, real small at the time, my DNA test results and discharge summary. And he looked at everything and he says, Daniel, you have a unique case of AFAP. And I recommend you continue, you have your routine surveillance. And then we stayed in touch through the years. And I would have my pathology reports. I would email them to Dr. Lynch. He would review them, give me his feedback and insight. And, I continued to read. Earlier on, I had a hard time finding information because there's not much out there about it. A lot of medical professionals have heard about FAP and they know about it. Some of them have heard about attenuated FAP, and fewer have had a patient that had it. So I figured, well, the more I researched and contacted these different organizations, not just nationally but internationally, I found myself in a position where, well, these medical professionals have been around for a long time. How about if I focus on the medical students? Because this way, because I'm at that time I was, I got diagnosed at 51, so now I'm 64. If I can reach as many medical students now or in the last decade, then they'll have this information for the rest of their medical career and the rest of their lives, and then they can share it. Because if you look back, I mean, Dr. Lynch started his hereditary cancer research in the very early 60s. So he passed away at 91 and a half years old on June 2nd of 2019, which was National Cancer Survivors Day. So how fitting. And he studied, he was researching up until a month before he passed away. So I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life to educate the students, medical students, to continue the legacy of Dr. Lynch on the importance of early detection in hopes of saving lives. And then, so there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, no pun intended, a GI joke there. But if I just, and things happen. I keep in touch with my genetic counselor there, and every month or so, or a couple months, I'm emailing her, say, hey, I got this update, so, and I kept asking her, is there any opportunities I can be a live case presentation at Stanford School of Medicine? She goes, well, I had this idea. How about we do a 10-minute recording? You share your story, and we'll use that recording as an addendum to the Stanford Master of Science program for their online curriculum. So then we did that, and she goes, oh, by the way, I have a medical geneticist here at Stanford. It's been asking me if I have a patient that has a mutation that would like to be a live case presentation, on campus. They had 90 students in their first year of medical school. They've only been in medical school for 3 weeks. And I got invited to go in person, and I'm in the classroom, and she, the geneticist, I gave her a lot of information. I had 3 weeks to work on it. Well, she just said, no, you don't need to plan anything, just show up. But I gave her a lot of my background information. So she put together a slide presentation, and I got to the class, and she started she talked to me a minute or two before the class started. Then she introduced me to just a quick, introduction to the class. And then she had went through a couple of her slides. She had a 24-page slide deck. And the first 3, 4 slides, 5 slides were hers. And then all the material that I had sent to her from the previous 3 weeks, she had included that in her slide deck. And then she said, okay, Daniel, the class is yours now. So the class was 2 hours long. For an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes, the students were asking me any question they had on their mind. And this is incredible. So we're going to do this every year, as long as the curriculum doesn't change. And what an amazing opportunity. These medical students are going to be future cancer researchers, future geneticists, pathologists. I mean, it's amazing, So, this goes back to my purpose, always forge ahead with a purpose. And my mission in life is to, educate the medical students. Because if it wasn't for Dr. Lynch and his resilience with this hereditary cancer research, after he got out of the Navy, and the late 50s, early 60s, he had some patients that were passing away of colon cancer. He said, colon cancer may not just be environmental, it may be hereditary. And he started applying for grants to do research. And they said, Henry, you're way off. He goes, no, I think I'm onto something. And he kept persisting. He kept applying for these grants. Lynch syndrome, that's named after Dr. Lynch. Well, in '84, he received that funding, that grant to 6 years later led to the discovery of attenuated FAP. And so, I mean, I was doing as much reading about Dr. Lynch and, of course, talked to him. We communicated through the years. And, I look at my life while he was up until 2019, my entire life, he's been devoted to hereditary cancer research. And he's also got involved with other, hereditary cancer, syndromes. So the least I can do is help continue his legacy. And maybe in the decades to come, there'll be more advancements, internationally. So it's an incredible opportunity, because to see where this journey will take me. mean, I was in the Navy trial, my journey took me 22 years on active duty. So, I'm going on 13 years into this journey. So we'll see where it goes.
Certainly. Wow. I just an incredible story and something that really stood out to me in that was how you took your diagnosis and those experiences and really turned it into an opportunity to educate yourself, be an informed patient, and also advocate for yourself and for the condition to carry on that incredible legacy of Dr. Lynch. Educating medical students and future medical professionals is such an important thing to do, especially when we have these rare diseases, because like you said, if they can have that knowledge going into their medical career, even if they encounter one other patient with that condition, they can say, "Oh, I remember hearing about this patient's experience when I was in medical school," and I think that can be really powerful. And kind of, going off of that, since educating medical students is such a significant part of your mission, is there a key message that you aim to convey to them about AFAP or about your experience as a patient?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, there's lots of things I can think about. It's just bringing them, you know, um, sharing my journey with them, the impact that, and I mean, how many patients have the opportunity to meet a doctor that's credited with the discovery of a mutation they've been diagnosed with? It's just incredible. I mean, that just that's the yeah, that's the pinnacle right there, in my opinion. But it's I think of it, that's all divine intervention as far as I'm concerned. But the message is the to help the educating of the medical professionals, because they all communicate, they all go to conferences. I mean, my GI doctor, he was 70 years old, and he told me after my colonoscopy, I only had that first one. He said, well, Dan, and after I had my diagnosis and surgery, I'd still see him every year. He says, Daniel, I'll tell you, I was going to retire 6 years ago. And I said, Doc, you know why you didn't retire? Because you needed to save my life. And so he had that information because he about the AFAP, okay, because of the conferences, because technology continues to advance, medical technology. And the DNA test that I had conducted, the first one was in May of 2012. I mean, that was probably anywhere from 16 to $20,000. It took 6 weeks to get the results back. Years, decades earlier, I mean, there wasn't, especially for patients, they had the DNA test, but I mean, look at, so the medical technology continues to advance. So the more opportunities I have to share with the medical students and the medical professionals, it's going to, allow them to really dive into my journey to I mean, look at the medical students. I mean, how many years do they end up going to college? Different, over a decade probably. Okay, then they're
Mhm.
going to have this information. Their careers are going to last for decades. I mean, Dr. Lynch, look, he was 91. Okay, so he'd been medical professional back in the 50s. I mean, they have this information, and they, for the rest of their lives, their careers and their lives. So this being a rare disease, that is, I've heard some folks in the UK refer to it as an ultra rare. I mean, 0.03% of the global population. I mean, what is it? How much? 7.5 billion, right? Roughly the global population. So what's 0.3% is what, about 270,000 maybe, but we don't know. We don't
Mhm.
know. So, but to share this with them so they have the information, and it's going to be decades. I mean, we continue this journey, and this is one mutation that's a rare disease of 7,100 rare diseases globally. So you get into the rare disease community, you know. So anything that I can do to help the medical students, I mean, so and the medical professionals as well, especially the GI, folks. But it's just, I appreciate everything that they've done. you know. And this is my way of sitting across the table for them to share with them a practical application. I'm here, here in flesh because of the the dedication that the healthcare providers, medical professionals, geneticists, pathologists, Dr. Lynch and his team. And so this is my way of saying thank you. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. Put it that way. The pathologists, they say they're the unseen heroes in the medical community, as well as the medical researchers. So this is my way of thanking them, and this is what we have to look forward to is future discoveries and advancements that are going to help not just the patient, it's going to help their family because you want to see if they have family history. And if they don't, well, at least may have skipped a generation. Now, Dr. Lynch, I don't have any family history. So Dr. Lynch has shared with me that it's quite possible the mutation started with me. I don't have any biological children, so the mutation is going to end with me. Now, I'm the youngest of my siblings. I'm the youngest of my first cousins. My parents and my maternal and paternal relatives all passed away. So no one on the Shockley and the Wilson side knows anything about this mutation. So all the information I give to them, they take it to their GI doctors. And when they get their colonoscopies, they've been getting them, and they 2 or 3 polyps, benign, everything's fine. Come back in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So I'm a team player. So I took it for the family. And so I educate them, and they can ask any questions just like anybody else I talk with. And now we're going to wait for my second cousins. When they turn 45, they decide to get their colonoscopy. I don't tell anybody what to do. I just share my journey. My friends, family, members, I hope to be an inspiration and source of encouragement. It's their decision what they want to do. They have my information, so if my second cousins decide they want to get their colonoscopy, then we'll see. Maybe it skipped a generation. We may never know, okay? But what we do know is I had this mutation, and now I want to share the information with my family. But family history is very important. So, but that's where it takes on a whole different level of excitement for me. It's like which platform or which community do I want to talk to next? Rare disease, hereditary colon cancer, ostomy, men's mental health. I mean, it just there's this. Sometimes I just have to really slow down and just focus. Okay, hereditary colon cancer syndrome. That's what I need to focus on. But it's absolutely amazing that our medical technology globally. I collaborate with medical professionals, medical students globally. I have a great time just sharing because I just say ask any questions you want. There's no limit on what questions you can ask me. There's no barriers, and this is going to help them out. I send out positive vibes. I get it back tenfold. And there's a lot of times I get to communicate with medical students, medical professionals internationally that know about this, and I can have a more in-depth conversation with them.
Yeah, so you mentioned that this is a rare disease, and so I would be remiss to not acknowledge Rare Disease Day coming up at the end of February. What does Rare Disease Day mean to you since getting this diagnosis? And I connected with you on Instagram because of the advocacy work that you do on your Instagram page. What does that mean to you, and how will you be furthering advocacy related to hereditary cancer syndromes this month to bring more awareness to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it goes back to the history of when the DNA double helix was discovered by Crick and Watson. They wrote it down on a napkin, as the story goes, in the Eagle Pub in Cambridge. The date was February 28th of 1953. So whoever came up with the idea to have Rare Disease Day on the last day of February, I wish I could have coined that because that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So what better way to have Rare Disease Day on the rarest day of the year? Fast forward about a decade when Dr. Lynch started his research. Okay, so I took on this personally. When I found out that Crick and Watson discovered the DNA double helix that they, in Cambridge there on February 28th, I said, well, this is, and I found out that AFAP is a rare disease. I put the two together. Okay, well, this is another way I can help out, with the rare disease community. So I've been involved with different organizations, individuals, medical students globally for the last, I'd say, 11 years for sure, possibly 12 years, because I didn't know about that until after I was doing the ostomy. I was involved with a lot of ostomy related efforts as well, because the first Saturday of every October is Ostomy Awareness Day, and then the last day of February is Rare Disease Day, and of course March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. So Rare Disease Day, it's huge. Now, I don't know if you know this, but while I was at Stanford, I had a comprehensive DNA test conducted, and it revealed that I also have a second rare disease called schwannomatosis in the 22nd chromosome. So APC is in the fifth chromosome. Schwannomatosis is LZTR1. That's in my 22nd chromosome. So I'm twice mutated. So and schwannomatosis is even more rare than AFAP. So as a result, I've been assigned to a neurologist or neurosurgeon at Stanford to go through some extensive testing. The first test I had was a MRI of my brain. The results came back unimpressive. So as I tell the medical community, there's nothing there. And but it's not cancer related, but it would impact if you get schwannoma. They get these schwannomas. They're tumors, and they go around nerves. So it could be a neurological thing. But so far, there's no sign of any in my brain. But I have to go through two major testing down at Stanford, which will be in the next probably month or two. And by the way, I'm not on any medication. There's really no cure for what I have. So once we find out the mutation in the case of AFAP, we just have to hopefully prevent it from reaching further. So we averted the colon cancer by having the colon rectum and anus removed. The pancreaspirin, that was to remove 30 centimeters beyond where the 3 centimeter adenoma was, redo the bile ducts, and then remove my gallbladder so the mutation won't reach that. So, but yeah, rare disease. I mean, there's so many out there. I really feel for the patients and their family members of those who are symptomatic, that are on medication, that have family history. I mean, I'm going in this I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. I'm trying to be like a sponge and absorb it, and then I share, but the rare disease, it really just blows my mind. I mean, what are we up to, 30 or 7,100? I think rare diseases, and wow. I mean, that's globally. I mean, and that's what we know about. I mean, how many more are there that we don't know about? But this is the beauty also with the advancements in the DNA testing. So, we just hope that we continue with this with the message about Rare Disease Day. To help the families that have this diagnosis that they know about, and we also want to help. Want to destigmatize getting checkups. Destigmatize getting a colonoscopy. Or what it's like to have a permanent ostomy. Um, I thought of years ago, well, a couple decades ago, I remember hearing that we have two choices in life: we can react or we can respond. And I thought of, well, I like to respond. I like to gather information so I can make a logical decision. Yeah, I react a lot too, but when it comes to medical, decisions, I gather the information so I can try to process it and I've been fortunate, so far. So, you know, um, and that's been a good, I learned that from the military. Is once again another thing I've learned from the military. But share my journey, you know, um, it's going to help the rare disease community as well. Do you know the Medics for Rare? That's a UK-based organization. Um,
No, I'm not
they
familiar with
collab,
them.
yeah, they collaborate with Rare Beacon. It's another UK organization. Well, every year for the last 8 years, they have what's called a Student Voice Prize essay contest, where they take undergraduate medical students, and if they're interested, they can be paired with a patient that has a rare disease. And this is all globally. So for the last 5 years, I've been paired with a different medical student. But uh, but this is rare disease. It's helping the medical students with their this is just a one-off for them to do, and they will have sometimes a 60-minute video call, and then they do as much reading as they can on the patient's journey. They write an essay, and so that's another way. So it's helping medical students, but it's also in the rare disease community too. So I really enjoy that.
Such strong advocacy work that you're involved with, and that is really powerful and important for the rare disease community to have those patient voices and the patient champions, like you said. Um, I'd love to know, what advice would you give to someone who's newly diagnosed with AFAP or a different hereditary cancer syndrome, and what would you like medical professionals to understand about the patient experience with a hereditary condition like this?
Well, as far as the patient goes, I highly recommend, or I should say suggest, I just want to suggest, talk to their family, talk to your medical team, but talk to your family and see what they know, um, and talk to your medical team and hope and just ask lots of questions. Okay, you're sitting down, some just write your question down write it down, in a notebook or on your device, and that way when you go in for your appointments, and have an open communication with your medical team. So that way, um, it will hopefully help them along the way. Now, of course, anxiety gets in there, and what is this, and what do I do? And I have all those questions. I still have questions, because there's a lot of unknowns out there. But we look at what approach, once again, react or respond. And so, things, there's all kinds of things that we think about, and just talk to those you trust, and hopefully you'll get some good resources and some good feedback, insight, and then it's up to that patient to take it from there. What approach do they want to? I mean, I was offered the opportunity to have the surgery, both surgeries, and I already knew about it. I said, yes, I want the surgery, and but that's me. Not everybody's that way. But yeah, as far as the patient goes, just talk it over with your family and your medical professional. Now, as far as the medical community, my approach is a lot different. My journey is a lot different, and my what I do with my journey is a lot different than majority of the medical professionals that I've had the opportunity to communicate and have an audience with. One, it goes back to, because I'm a guy, I'm talking about rare disease, and I'm just embraced this whole diagnosis and this whole journey from the onset. So, but I always want to be open to hopefully learn more. You know, as medical technology continues to advance. I'll be a patient at Stanford for the rest of my life, so I'm going to help them along the way too. But that's how I look at things. I want to learn, I want to enjoy, learn about things, enjoy it, and see where that takes me. I connected with you on Instagram because of the efforts that you've been doing. And I said, well, okay, this is cool. This is a great opportunity because patient perspective. Well, that's perfect for me because I'm giving my patient perspective. but not every patient has the same perspective. But we're all on this journey to help each other along the way. And there's little things that I do that maybe someone will pick up on. I picked up on a few things that I hear through the last 13 years, just on the patient side, and longer than that from everything else I've experienced. But it's a great journey. I love it. I really do.
I have to say, your excitement to continue learning and to be a resource to other people, whether that be other patients or medical professionals, is just really wonderful. The way that you convey those experiences is clearly something that you're so passionate about. And I just want to thank you for wanting to contribute your voice to this in a really special way. So I am excited to see the advocacy work that you continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It's so, it's like I said, it's an incredible journey. I'm just enjoying it. And yeah, there's, years, well, not years, months ago, I came across an expression. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where it came from, but it was a motivation comment that a college football coach, there was a university up in Montana. The coach's name was Bob Green. I remember that. And he has a lot of positive comments. And it came up on Instagram. They had the snippets of his at the end of a game. The one of the local news channels was asking him about that performance of their team. They lost, and one of the comments was, "We're like a woodpecker in a petrified forest. We're keeping busy looking for opportunities." And I said, I like that. So I listened to it a few times, and it's exactly my time as an advocate, because I feel at times I'm like a woodpecker in a petrified forest. I'm keeping busy looking for opportunities. And this is a great opportunity here. It's I enjoy it. I really do. It's a lot of fun. And just I always ask the host, ask any question you want.
You've certainly taken those opportunities and made something beautiful out of them. So there's opportunity everywhere. As we, get to the end of the episode, where can listeners find you on social media? And is there anything that you're working on now that you want to promote, or anything coming up soon that you want listeners to hear about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things. I'm on LinkedIn, Dan Drydock Shockley. I'm on Instagram. I think it's Dan Drydock. Um, those are my two main. I'm on Twitter too. That handle is Dry Shockley. But I'm more on Instagram and LinkedIn. So anybody can contact me there. My email is dandrydock@gmail.com, and anybody is interested in, they can Google my name. There's probably 30. There used to be 30 some articles out there. I think in January every year I check, especially after the new year, because a lot of those articles, that website has been refreshed, so if there's 30 some articles out there that I know of, there's probably 19, maybe 20 podcast guest appearances. Yeah, anybody's welcome to follow me on those platforms, and you'll contact me if they have any questions. I've been recently involved with the American Society of Clinical Pathology to be a patient champion for them. I have a bioengineering colleague in Istanbul, Turkey, and him and his colleagues, they actually did a feature 2 weeks ago on their website. The biggest thing I have in, here where I'm at physically is I've been getting a lot of support from my senator, the district I reside in, Senator Roger Neal. I have asked him in the past if he would, providing a commemorative message. This was 2 years ago for Ostomy Awareness Day, designating the first Saturday of October in 2023 as Ostomy Awareness Day statewide. Well, he says, I will do better than that. How about I author a Senate concurrent resolution, and then I'm going to introduce it on the Senate floor here at the Capitol in Sacramento, and then I'll invite you to sit in the gallery while I introduce it, and it goes up for a vote. And then that passed 37-0. And then he read my bio, and then he introduced me. I stood up and from the third level of the gallery, and everybody applauded me, and they videoed it. So if I didn't send that video to you, I'll send it to you. So then I thought, well, we got March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. So a year ago, I submitted a request for a Senate concurrent resolution to designate March as CRC Awareness Month in the state of California. Went up there, and that passed 34-0. And then I said, you know what? I have a colleague in Michigan that has FAP family history, and he has a campaign he's been doing on behalf of the University of Michigan. And he's been doing that for the last 8 years, I believe. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, what he's looking to do is have the third week of June as FAP Awareness Week. And I said, Kevin, would you mind if I, piggyback your campaign and we do it in California? Because he has it. We have a colleague in Oklahoma that's been doing it, and I mean, of course, he's in Michigan. So he says, yeah. So I reached out to Senator Nealo's staff last fall. They know me all too well. And I said, this is a positive thing. So we're giving positivity back to the community. And his chief of staff said, yeah, we'll be more than happy. So she goes, let's circle back after the new year. So I circled back. In the meantime, I reached out to my genetic counselor at Stanford because my buddy Kevin's got the University of Michigan genetic team on board. I said, well, how about I'm a patient at Stanford. Maybe we get Stanford genetics on board. And sure enough, my genetic counselor said yes. And so we put that wording into the resolution draft. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but that's the plan. It's been this draft resolution has been added to the agenda for the current legislative session. So we'll see where it goes, but that's going to be really cool. And we'll be doing this every year. It's that's just it's exciting. It really is. And like I said, we'll see where it goes. But there's a lot of opportunities that are just. I mean, they're all exciting, and some of them are just uncharted territory. Like these Senate concurrent resolutions. I wasn't familiar with those up until 2 years ago, and but that's the latest thing that's on the calendar right now. And of course, virtually, there's a lot of virtual things that are in the works.
That's really, really wonderful. In the description of this episode, I'll make sure to include your social media handles and where people can contact you. Certainly, as it gets closer to Rare Disease Day, looking forward to seeing the advocacy work that you continue to do, and any updates that come along, send them my way and we can share them on the podcast. All of your insight, and just really special to get to connect with another rare disease patient. I think those are really important voices to amplify. Thank you for taking the opportunity. You're just a wonderful example of how you can really make change through advocating and embracing what this diagnosis has meant for you.
Yeah. Hey, let me add. I didn't mention this earlier. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did.
Did you hear the interview about Randy Moss?
No, I missed that. I'm familiar with Randy Moss, but you can, certainly talk a little bit more about it.
Well, he had this surgery very similar to the one I just had. He has a rare disease. He ended up having the Whipple procedure. Now, what I had is it's not the true Whipple, but it's a variation of it. But he had that in December, and he was diagnosed. So I reached out to him. I've got when I found this out, because I didn't see that during the game, but I was reading something online about Randy Moss, and I said, and they showed a little segment of him at the whatever part of the game it was. It might have been halftime, because I was out tending to my crops at halftime, and so I read about it, and I said, "Oh my gosh, the Whipple procedure!" And he had a pancreatic stent. Well, he had a stent for the bile duct going to his liver. Well, I have a pancreatic stent. Um, but anyway, so I went onto his website, and I contacted him, and I got a response back for one of his team members and or one of his staff members that said, we'll pass this on to Randy. So I would love to share my journey because we basically had the same surgery, and he's 47. So how? I mean, this is just once again they talk about it. There's stories online about this that I didn't know anything about, but he was at the game, and he talked a little bit about that journey that just started. I mean, it was just last fall he was diagnosed, but I had never heard anybody, especially in that capacity, having the Whipple procedure. And here it is. Well, how cool that is, talking about it. This is another thing, and it's a guy, and it's hopefully help destigmatize going to get checkups. That's the other beauty of it. So he's got a powerful message. I would love to be able to collaborate with him on something, virtually, just to, hey, he's got, we almost had the same surgery, 4 years apart, but you know, anyway, it's all about positivity and being a source of inspiration and encouragement out there.
It's true. Thank you for sharing that. Any platform to bring awareness to, like you said, the importance of getting these screenings done and awareness to the procedures that are involved in these diagnoses and treatments and again, your mindset, your outlook, always forge ahead with a purpose. It's just wonderful. It really is. So thank you
Do you
for.
know? Do you know? Always forge ahead with a purpose. Do you know? You know what that is? That's a hidden message. Growing up, I used to read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe, and he would write things. So if you take the first letter of each of those words, what's it spell?
AFAP.
AFAP. There you
Yep.
go.
Wow, that's great. I
It,
love that.
well, it's you didn't know that, did you?
I didn't recognize that.
Yeah.
No.
See. Well,
Yep.
some people catch, not too many, but I didn't plan that. That was an epiphany. I woke up about 7, 8 months after my surgery. I woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the first two words on my mind were forge ahead. So I turned on the nightlight, I wrote it down on a little notepad. Forge ahead, forge ahead, forge ahead. Then I put purpose, and I said forge ahead with a purpose. And I said, well, wait, that's FAP. I have AFAP. What am I always doing? Oh, I'm always forging ahead with purpose. There you go. It was an
Perfect.
epiphany. And
Yeah.
so that's my mantra. It's a positive spin on a bleak diagnosis. Anyway, so thank you again. I mean, gosh, we'll have to follow up. I'll keep you posted on what's going on, and maybe in the summer, hopefully we get that. If we get that resolution, we can maybe do a follow up. And I mean, who knows? You know, the
Certainly, yeah. Please do follow up and think a great thing to leave the listeners with is to always forge ahead with a purpose. I think that's how we should all live and embody our lives every day, taking on opportunities, like you said, and embracing our circumstances. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it.